I never thought I'd be the kind of girl who could have everything, only to lose it in one decision. Olivia Thompson stared out the window of her cramped apartment, the rain tapping rhythmically against the glass. She couldn't escape the sound, just like she couldn't escape the mess her life had become. It had all been so simple once, or so it had seemed. She had been in love with Derek Mason, the kind of man who made every woman's heart skip a beat. He was handsome, charming, and everything she had ever dreamed of. They were supposed to have a future together until the day he chose Lily, her younger sister, instead of her. The betrayal stung more than anything she had ever experienced. Olivia had never imagined that the man she had given her heart to would pick her sister over her, and yet, here she was, standing in the shadow of that choice, alone and heartbroken. It felt like everything had crumbled in a matter of seconds. There was no denying it, her sister had won. But Olivia wasn't one to stay down for long. She had too much pride to let her tears show, and she had too much fight left in her to just give up. She wiped her face and forced herself to move. The past was behind her. She couldn't keep looking back. But the reality was hard to shake. Derek and Lily were together now, living the life Olivia had always imagined for herself. Meanwhile, she was left with nothing but memories and regret. That was until Vincent Romano walked into her life. She had seen him before, of course. Who hadn't? The Mafia boss's reputation was known far and wide. Cold, calculating, and powerful, Vincent was a man who ruled an empire built on secrets. When he first spoke to Olivia, it wasn't with any hint of warmth or compassion. Instead, there was an underlying force that made her stand a little straighter, as if the very presence of this man demanded respect. "You look like you could use a change of scenery," Vincent said, his voice low and measured, eyes glinting with an intensity that made her stomach churn. Olivia didn't know why she didn't walk away, why she stood there, frozen, in the middle of his dark gaze. Maybe it was the way he said it, like he already knew everything there was to know about her life, her struggles, and her heartache. Maybe it was because, in that moment, Olivia felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: power. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel small, insignificant. There was something about Vincent that made her feel alive again, even if she knew it was a dangerous feeling. "I can offer you something you won't get anywhere else," Vincent continued, his eyes never leaving hers. Olivia felt her breath catch in her throat. She wasn't sure if it was the allure of his words or the weight of his gaze, but something in her stirred, a curiosity she hadn't allowed herself to feel in months. "What's the catch?" she asked, trying to mask the vulnerability she suddenly felt. "There's always a catch," Vincent replied with a smirk, a hint of amusement in his voice. "But the question is, Olivia, are you ready to find out what it is?" Olivia sat in the dimly lit bar, her fingers wrapped tightly around the glass of water in front of her, her mind still processing the conversation with Vincent. The weight of his words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. She had expected a moment of clarity, a decisive moment when she would know exactly what to do. But there was nothing. Just a strange feeling of unease mixed with curiosity. She had always prided herself on making decisions quickly, on knowing when to cut her losses and move forward. But this was different. There was something about Vincent that she couldn't ignore. It wasn't just his presence. It was the way he spoke to her, like he already knew the depths of her soul, the parts she kept hidden even from herself. His offer had been vague, mysterious, but something told Olivia that it wasn't just a random invitation. He had a purpose. She knew it wasn't a simple offer to help her find a new job or a better life. No, this was something deeper, darker. And for reasons she couldn't understand, she found herself intrigued. The sound of the door opening pulled her from her thoughts. She looked up, her heart skipping a beat when she saw Vincent walk into the bar. He was just as imposing in person as he had been over the phone, his dark suit tailored to perfection, his eyes scanning the room as if he were searching for something or someone. When his gaze landed on her, she felt a jolt in her chest. He walked toward her with purpose, his every step deliberate, and Olivia couldn't help but feel a little out of breath as he reached her table. "Olivia," Vincent's voice was low, a quiet intensity that made her shiver slightly. "You look like you've been thinking about my offer." She didn't respond right away, unsure of what to say. She could feel the heat of his presence, the way he seemed to fill the space around him. It was like he had a gravitational pull that made it impossible for her to look away. "I'm not sure what you want from me, Vincent," she said finally, her voice steady but betraying a hint of uncertainty. Vincent leaned in slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. "I want you to make a choice," he said, his words hanging in the air like a challenge. "I'm offering you something no one else can. A chance to change your life, to step out of the shadows and into something more." Olivia swallowed hard. She wasn't sure if it was fear or excitement that was making her heart race. She had always been the one to keep her distance from the dangerous side of life, but now, sitting across from Vincent, she found herself questioning everything. She had never imagined she would be here, sitting with a mafia boss, discussing her future like it was a business deal. She had expected to be angry, to be defensive, but instead, she felt an odd sense of calm. It was as if he was giving her a choice, but at the same time, making her feel like she had no other option. "What are you asking me to do?" Olivia finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. Vincent smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was a knowing, calculated smile. "I'm not asking you to do anything, Olivia. I'm offering you a chance to be part of something bigger than yourself. A chance to be part of my world. All you have to do is say yes." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Olivia was unsure of what she was feeling. Was it fear? Was it curiosity? Or was it something else entirely? She couldn't quite put her finger on it. But there was something in Vincent's eyes that made her feel like this wasn't just about her. This was about something much larger than she could imagine. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. This was it. The moment of decision. And despite every rational thought telling her to walk away, Olivia felt something in her stir, something she hadn't felt in a long time. "What happens if I say yes?" she asked, her voice steady now. Vincent's eyes softened, just slightly, and he leaned back in his chair. "Then you become mine, Olivia. But not just in the way you think. You will belong to me, yes, but I will protect you, I will give you the life you've always dreamed of. You'll never have to struggle again. All you have to do is trust me." Olivia felt a shiver run down her spine. She wasn't sure why, but something about his words felt like a promise and a threat all at once. She looked at him, searching his eyes for any sign of deceit, but all she saw was sincerity. And power. It was tempting, more tempting than anything she had ever felt before. "I don't know if I can trust you," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Vincent leaned in closer, his eyes locking onto hers. "Then let me show you, Olivia. Let me show you what I can offer you." Olivia sat there, her heart racing as Vincent's words continued to echo in her mind. The weight of his promise, of what he could offer her, was impossible to ignore. She had heard of men like him, the ones who lived in the shadows of power, controlling everything from behind the scenes. But now, sitting across from him, she realized she was no longer just a bystander. She was being pulled into that world, whether she liked it or not. "I'm not sure what to expect, Vincent," Olivia said, her voice betraying a mix of uncertainty and curiosity. "You're offering me a life I can't even imagine. What if I can't handle it?" Vincent's gaze softened, his eyes no longer the cold, calculating eyes of a mafia boss but something else entirely, something personal. He leaned forward slightly, his voice lower now, as if he was speaking directly to her soul. "Olivia, this life, it's not about handling it. It's about choosing whether you want more. Whether you're ready to leave behind the life you've known and step into something that's bigger than yourself. You've been playing small for too long. It's time for you to step up and claim what's yours." His words hit her like a wave, crashing over the walls she had built around her heart. She had always been the one to play it safe, to stay in the background while others made their moves. But here was Vincent, offering her a chance to do more, to be more. For the first time in a long while, Olivia wondered if maybe she had been holding herself back all this time. Maybe this was her chance to take control of her own fate. "What happens if I say yes?" she asked again, her voice trembling slightly, but with more conviction this time. Vincent's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. If you say yes, Olivia, your life will change in ways you can't even imagine. You'll be part of my world. My family. And I'll make sure you never have to worry about anything again. No more struggling. No more wondering if you're good enough. You'll be safe with me. Olivia swallowed, trying to steady herself. She knew that what Vincent was offering wasn't just a simple promise, it was a life-altering choice. One that would forever change the course of her future. She could feel the pull, the temptation to accept, but the weight of it all felt overwhelming. I don't know if I'm ready for that, she admitted quietly, her eyes dropping to the glass in front of her, her hands trembling slightly. Vincent reached out, his hand covering hers gently, his touch surprisingly warm. You don't have to be ready right now, Olivia. This isn't a decision you have to make tonight. But I want you to think about it. Think about what kind of life you want. You deserve more than what you've been settling for. His words were soft, yet firm, and they lingered in the air between them like a promise. Olivia took a deep breath, her mind racing as she thought about the life she had built for herself so far, working long hours, barely scraping by, always wondering if there was something more. Was this the chance she had been waiting for? To step into a world where she wasn't just surviving, but thriving? Slowly, she looked up at Vincent, meeting his gaze with a new sense of clarity. She had always been afraid of what would happen if she stepped into a world like his. The unknown was terrifying. But maybe the real fear was staying in the same place, never daring to take the leap. What happens if I say no? She asked, her voice steadier now, though the question hung in the air like a challenge. Vincent's smile didn't fade. If you say no, Olivia, I'll respect your decision. But know this, I won't be waiting forever. Opportunities like this don't come around often. If you walk away now, there's no going back. The weight of his words settled over her, and for the first time, Olivia felt like she was standing on the edge of something big. The decision was hers, but the future was uncertain. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but a part of her, the part that had been buried for so long, was telling her to take the chance. To take control. I'll think about it, she said finally, her voice quiet but determined. Vincent's eyes never left hers. That's all I ask. Olivia spent the next few days in a haze, her mind constantly drifting back to Vincent's offer. She had never been the kind of woman to jump into things without thinking, yet here she was, teetering on the edge of a decision that could change everything. She tried to focus on her work, on the mundane tasks that had always filled her days, but nothing seemed to matter as much anymore. Every moment felt like it was leading her to one of two choices, each as uncertain as the next. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting a soft glow on the table where Olivia sat with her coffee. She hadn't slept well the night before, her mind swirling with doubts and questions. Was she really ready to leave her old life behind? Was it worth it to step into a world that seemed so far removed from the life she had built? As the day wore on, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that Vincent was waiting for her decision. It was like he had already claimed her, whether she agreed to join him or not. His presence loomed in her mind. Both comforting and unsettling. She wasn't used to being the one who held the power in a situation. But Vincent made her feel like she could be anything, someone more than just the woman stuck in a job she hated, always struggling to get by. The thought of living a life of luxury, a life where she didn't have to worry about bills or constant exhaustion, was tempting. But was that really what she wanted? The next day, as she sat in the cafe where she usually went to clear her head, Olivia felt her phone buzz in her bag. She reached for it, her heart skipping a beat when she saw Vincent's name flash on the screen. She hesitated for a moment, then answered. Olivia, his voice was calm, steady, as always. Have you made your decision yet? She swallowed, her thoughts racing. I'm not sure. I'm still thinking about it, she replied, her voice betraying the uncertainty she was feeling. Vincent was silent for a moment, and she could almost feel the weight of his gaze through the phone. Take your time, he said finally. But know that I'm not going to wait forever. My offer doesn't stay on the table for long. His words were firm, but there was something reassuring in his tone, as if he was giving her space to make up her mind, even if it was an unspoken ultimatum. Olivia set the phone down and stared out the window. She had always been a careful person, never one to take risks. But this felt different. Vincent wasn't just offering her a chance at a new life, he was offering her the opportunity to become someone more, someone who didn't have to settle for the life she had. But was it worth it? Was she ready to give up everything for the unknown? As she pondered the decision, her phone buzzed again. She looked down to see a message from Vincent. "I'll be waiting for your answer." Olivia's fingers hovered over the screen as she read the message, her heart pounding in her chest. What was she waiting for? The decision was hers to make, but somehow, it didn't feel like it. She knew Vincent was right, she had been playing small for too long. It was time to step up. But could she truly step into his world, a world so different from her own, and leave behind everything she had known? There was no going back, she realized. Once she made her choice, it would be final. And as she looked out the window, watching the world pass by, Olivia knew that this moment was the crossroads of her life. Whatever she chose, it would define the path ahead. With a deep breath, she made up her mind. She wasn't going to stay in the shadows anymore. She was ready to step into the light. With her hands trembling slightly, she typed her response to Vincent, "I'm ready." Olivia's heart raced as she sat in her apartment, staring at the phone in her hand. She had typed the message to Vincent, and now, there was no going back. Her decision was made. The weight of it hung heavily on her chest, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a strange sense of relief. She was no longer hovering between two worlds, torn by indecision. She had made a choice. And now, she had to live with it. The phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Vincent. "I'll send a car for you. Be ready in 1 hour." Her mind immediately began to race again, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. This was happening. She was about to walk into a new life, one she didn't entirely understand, but one that promised to be far from ordinary. 1 hour. That was all she had. She stood up, pacing around her apartment as her mind spun with 1,000 questions. What would Vincent's world be like? What would he expect from her? Would she be able to fit in, to adapt, or would she always feel out of place? The questions swirled, but no answers came. Instead, she felt the pull again, the same pull she had felt when she first met him. A mix of fear and excitement. She knew she couldn't turn back. Olivia took one last look at her apartment, at the life she had built here. It wasn't much, but it had been hers. Now, she was about to leave it behind. She grabbed her coat and headed for the door. The car was waiting for her outside, a sleek black vehicle that seemed to gleam in the dim light of the evening. She climbed in, the door shutting with a soft thud. Behind her, sealing her into a new reality. The drive felt endless, the city lights blurring past her as she stared out the window, lost in thought. She tried to imagine what Vincent's world was like, the power, the luxury, the danger. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't quite picture it. All she knew was that it was different. It was big. And it was something she had never been a part of. The car eventually stopped in front of a grand building. Olivia's breath caught in her throat as she looked up at the towering structure, its lights casting a cold, polished glow. It was everything she had imagined and more, so much more. She stepped out of the car, her legs a little unsteady beneath her. The door opened, and a man in a sharp suit stepped forward to greet her. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice deep and respectful. "Mr. Romano is expecting you." Olivia nodded, trying to steady her nerves as she followed him inside. The lobby was magnificent, marble floors glistening beneath her feet, and the walls adorned with artwork that screamed wealth and sophistication. Everything about this place exuded power. And in that moment, Olivia felt small again, like a little fish in a very big pond. She was led down a long hallway, and with each step, her heart pounded louder in her chest. This was it. She was about to meet Vincent again, and this time, it would be different. This time, she wasn't just meeting him as a stranger offering her a chance. This time, she was stepping into his world. And she had no idea what that world would ask of her. The door at the end of the hallway opened, and she was ushered into a large, opulent room. Vincent was sitting at a desk, his back to her as he flipped through papers. He looked up as she entered, his piercing gaze meeting hers, making her feel both seen and studied at the same time. He stood up, a slight smile playing at the corner of his lips. "Olivia," he said, his voice smooth and commanding. "Welcome." The words felt like a door opening, an invitation into something new. But it was also a challenge. Olivia stood frozen for a moment, trying to steady her breathing. This was it. This was the moment she had chosen, the path she had agreed to walk. She couldn't back out now. "I'm here," she said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling inside her. "I'm ready." Vincent's smile grew, and he walked toward her, his presence filling the room. "Good," he said, his voice low and assured. "Let's see if you really are." Olivia stood in the lavish office, her heart pounding in her chest as Vincent approached her. The room was quieter now, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a heavy curtain. Vincent's presence felt like a force, commanding and undeniable. He stopped in front of her, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her feel both vulnerable and strong at the same time. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence hung between them, thick with expectation. Then, Vincent's voice broke the stillness, smooth and sure. "You've made it this far, Olivia. But this is just the beginning." Olivia nodded, unsure of what to say. She had made her choice, but now, facing the reality of what that meant, the enormity of it all felt overwhelming. She had stepped into a world she didn't fully understand, a world that seemed far removed from everything she had known. "What do I do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Vincent's smile was small, but it held a promise, one she wasn't sure she was ready to accept. "Now, you start learning. There's a lot you need to know." He motioned to the chair across from him, and Olivia hesitated for a moment before sitting down. She had no idea what he meant by learning, but she knew that whatever it was, it would change her life forever. As she settled into the chair, Vincent walked to the large window overlooking the city. The skyline stretched out before them, the lights twinkling like stars. "This city is mine," he said, his voice distant as he looked out at the view. "Everything you see here, I control. And soon, you will understand how everything works. How power moves, how decisions are made, and how to navigate the world I live in." Olivia listened intently, trying to absorb every word. She had always been an outsider looking in, watching the powerful from a distance. But now, she was about to step into that world. "What do you want from me, Vincent?" she asked, the question that had been lingering in her mind finally slipping out. He turned back to her, his gaze sharp. "I want you to be ready," he replied simply. "Ready to take on what's coming. Ready to understand the responsibility that comes with being a part of my world." Olivia's mind raced as she processed his words. Responsibility? She had no idea what kind of responsibility Vincent was talking about, but she knew that whatever it was, it would be life-altering. She had already taken the first step, but now, it was real. She was truly in his world, and there was no turning back. "I can't promise I'll understand everything right away," Olivia said, her voice steady. "But I'm willing to try." Vincent's eyes softened, just for a moment, before he nodded. "That's all I ask. You'll learn, Olivia. You'll learn faster than you think." He walked over to the desk, picking up a small envelope and handing it to her. "This is your first lesson," he said, his tone now taking on a more serious edge. Olivia took the envelope from him, her fingers brushing against his for a brief moment. The contact sent a strange jolt through her, but she quickly pushed the sensation aside. She tore open the envelope and found a small card inside. The card was simple, black with gold lettering that read, "Meet me at midnight. Location is in the back." "What is this?" Olivia asked, confusion written across her face. Vincent's gaze remained steady, unwavering. "It's a test, Olivia. A test of your commitment. And of your courage." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Olivia felt a knot form in her stomach. She had expected something, but not this. A test? What happens if I don't pass? She asked, her voice betraying a hint of fear. Vincent stepped closer to her, his presence commanding. If you don't pass, then you won't last. This world isn't for the faint of heart. But if you do, then you'll have earned your place. The weight of his words hit her hard, but there was no going back now. She had made her choice. She had chosen to be here. And now, she would have to prove she belonged. She looked at the card again, her mind swirling with questions. Midnight. The location in the back. What was Vincent asking her to do? I'll be there, Olivia said finally, her voice steady. I'll prove myself. Vincent smiled, a look of approval in his eyes. Good. I'll be watching. The words lingered in the air as Olivia stood up, her mind racing. She wasn't sure what this test would be, but one thing was clear: she was about to take her first real step into Vincent's world. And she had no idea what awaited her. But she was ready. Ready to prove she could handle whatever came next. Olivia's heart was pounding as she stood in front of the building. The city around her felt distant, as if she were in another world altogether. The envelope with the mysterious card in her hand seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds, its black and gold lettering burning into her palm. It was nearly midnight, the streets empty and cold, the moon casting a pale glow across the pavement. She looked around, her mind racing. What was this test? What had Vincent meant by commitment and courage? The air felt thick with tension, but Olivia had already made up her mind. She was here for a reason, and she wasn't about to back down now. The card had told her to meet in the back, and the building loomed ahead, silent and imposing. She walked towards the entrance, her steps echoing in the quiet night. As she approached, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man in a suit. Olivia's breath caught, her instincts telling her this was a part of the test. The man nodded at her as she came closer. "You're late," he said, his voice low, with an almost amused edge. "I'm sorry," Olivia replied, trying to steady her voice. "I didn't know what to expect." The man didn't answer but instead turned and gestured for her to follow. They moved around the side of the building, where a door led into a dimly lit corridor. Olivia hesitated for only a second before stepping inside. The air inside was cooler, and the scent of old leather and polished wood filled the space. The hallway stretched ahead of her, lined with doors, each one closed, each one hiding secrets she could only imagine. The man led her down the hall, his footsteps steady and unhurried. He stopped in front of a door and motioned for her to enter. Olivia took a deep breath, her pulse quickening as she pushed the door open. Inside, the room was grand, yet simple. It wasn't a lavish office or a luxurious living space, but there was an unmistakable air of authority in the way the room was arranged. Vincent was standing by the window, his back to her. He didn't turn when she entered, but she could feel his eyes on her, studying her from across the room. "You're here," Vincent said, his voice calm, yet carrying a weight of expectation. "I told you it was a test. Are you ready for it?" Olivia stood still for a moment, absorbing the atmosphere, then nodded. "I'm ready." Vincent turned to face her, his gaze unwavering. "Good," he said, a hint of approval in his tone. "Now, you'll prove it." He walked toward her, his presence commanding, his steps echoing in the quiet room. Olivia's heart beat faster as he came closer, her thoughts swirling with uncertainty. What was he about to ask her to do? "There's only one way to pass this test," Vincent said, his voice softer now, almost conspiratorial. "You'll have to trust me completely. Without hesitation." Olivia's eyes met his, her mind racing. Trust him? Completely? She had just met him, and here she was, standing in his world, facing a challenge she had no idea how to tackle. She took a deep breath. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, her voice steady but full of trepidation. Vincent smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that sent a chill down her spine. "You'll do nothing. Not yet. I want to see how you respond when you're pushed. When you're forced to make a decision with no clear answers." His words hung in the air, heavy and uncertain. Olivia felt a knot form in her stomach. This was it, the moment where she would have to prove she could handle Vincent's world. No more hesitation. No more second guessing. It was time to step into the unknown. So, what now? She asked, her voice quieter now, almost afraid of what the answer might be. Vincent's smile remained, but there was something more in his eyes, something deeper. Now, we wait. The room was silent, save for the occasional sound of Olivia's breathing, which had become shallow, her heart pounding in her chest. She stood there, unsure of what to do next, but fully aware of the weight of Vincent's eyes on her. The stillness in the room was almost suffocating, and she couldn't help but feel the tension creeping into her muscles. What was this test? What was Vincent waiting for? She had expected some sort of task or challenge, but instead, there was only silence. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, trying to maintain her composure. Her mind was racing, the uncertainty overwhelming. Had she made the wrong choice? She had come here, taken the first step, but now, she wasn't sure if she could keep going. The silence dragged on, the minutes feeling like hours. She could feel her patience starting to fray. Just as she was about to speak, to ask him what he wanted from her, Vincent finally broke the silence. "You're still here," he said, his voice low and almost amused. "I expected you to run by now. Most people do when they realize what they've signed up for." Olivia straightened, her resolve hardening. "I'm not most people," she said, her voice firm. Vincent's lips curled into a smile, the kind of smile that was both approving and calculating. "No, you're not," he agreed. "And that's why you're still here. But you have to understand, Olivia, this world is not kind. It's not forgiving. You can't afford to hesitate, to doubt. If you do, you'll be swallowed whole." His words hit her harder than she expected. She had known the world Vincent inhabited was dangerous, but hearing him speak so plainly about it made the reality feel even more intense. She swallowed, trying to steady herself. "I'm ready for whatever comes next," she said, though a part of her wasn't sure if she truly believed that. "Good," Vincent said. "Because this is the part where you need to make a decision. You can stay in the comfort of your old life, where everything is predictable and safe, or you can step into this world with me, and everything changes. Everything becomes uncertain, and nothing is ever the same." He walked towards her, his steps slow and measured, each one purposeful. Olivia's breath caught as he came closer. But she didn't step back. She knew this was the moment, the point of no return. "You've already made the first choice by being here, Olivia," he continued, his voice softer now, almost like a whisper. "Now, you have to choose if you want to keep going. If you're ready to take control of your future or let it slip through your fingers." Olivia's mind was spinning, but something inside her clicked. She had spent too long feeling stuck, too long watching others live the lives she wanted. She was tired of being on the sidelines, of letting fear dictate her decisions. "I'm ready," she said again, more confidently this time, as if the words were a promise to herself. Vincent's gaze softened just slightly, and for the first time, she saw a hint of approval in his eyes. "Then let's begin," he said, his voice steady and sure. "The real test starts now." Olivia felt a rush of adrenaline as the weight of his words settled in. This was it. There was no going back now. She had crossed the threshold into a world that was as dangerous as it was alluring. And she wasn't going to let fear stop her. Not anymore. With a final nod from Vincent, she followed him deeper into the building, her footsteps echoing in the silent hallway. As she walked, she couldn't help but wonder what challenges awaited her. But one thing was certain, she was no longer the same woman who had walked into this room just moments ago. She had made her choice, and now, she was going to see it through. Olivia followed Vincent through the corridors, her footsteps echoing softly in the silence, her mind swirling with questions. Each turn they took led deeper into the heart of the building, further away from the world she had known. She could feel the weight of the decision she had made, each step taking her closer to a future that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Vincent walked ahead of her, his presence like a steady anchor in the unknown. She could sense the power he held, not just in the way people treated him, but in the quiet confidence he exuded. She was here, now, and there was no turning back. The hallways began to open up to a vast, open space, a room that seemed too grand for its purpose. It was simple in its design, but the opulence of it could not be ignored. At one end of the room, large windows overlooked the city, the lights of New York stretching out as far as the eye could see. Vincent stopped by the window, his silhouette framed by the glowing skyline. Olivia hesitated for a moment, but then joined him, standing a few feet away. He didn't look at her immediately but instead stared out over the city, as if lost in thought. After a moment, he spoke. "This is the world I've built, Olivia. This is where everything happens. Every decision. Every move." He turned slightly to look at her, his eyes intense, his voice unwavering. "You want to be a part of it. And now, you will be." Olivia looked out at the city, her gaze following the lights below. It felt surreal, like she was stepping into a story that wasn't hers yet. She had lived her life in the shadows, watching from the sidelines, and now, she was about to enter the spotlight. The questions that had haunted her all this time, could she do this, could she really live in this world, suddenly felt insignificant. She had made her choice, and there was no turning back now. "What do I do now?" she asked quietly, unsure of how to even begin understanding the enormity of the life she had just chosen. Vincent's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Now, you learn. You observe. You adapt." He walked over to a table that was scattered with documents, papers, and files. He gestured for her to come closer. Olivia approached cautiously, the uncertainty creeping back into her chest, but she didn't hesitate. She had already decided. She would adapt. She would learn. "This is your introduction to the life you're about to become a part of," Vincent said, looking at her with a piercing gaze. "Every piece of information here is a part of a larger picture. A picture that you will soon understand. But you must keep your eyes open, your mind sharp. And above all, you must stay focused." He handed her a file, the weight of it somehow heavier than the paper it was made of. "This is just the beginning, Olivia. You've made the first step, but it's not enough. Now, you must prove that you can handle it. You must show me that you're ready for what comes next." Olivia took the file, her fingers brushing against his for a split second, and she couldn't ignore the slight shiver that ran through her. She nodded, trying to maintain her composure. "I will," she said, her voice steady now, with more conviction than she had felt before. "I'm ready." Vincent's expression softened for a moment, but it was fleeting. He turned back toward the window, his gaze fixed on the city below. "We'll see," he said quietly, almost to himself. "We'll see if you're truly ready." The weight of his words lingered in the room as Olivia stood there, holding the file in her hands, feeling the weight of her decision more than ever. This was the beginning of something new, something far beyond anything she had ever known. But she was here, and she would prove herself. She would prove to Vincent and to herself that she belonged in this world. And there was no turning back. Not anymore.